Hello, welcome back to the StarrCast Podcast. This week we are talking about something near and dear to all of our hearts, marketing, and in specific, web marketing and the need to have a website. I have an awesome guest today. I'd like to welcome Connie Holland. She is the founder of Pixality Design, and they are a website design and digital strategist firm. Joining us from Nebraska. Welcome, Connie.
Hi, thanks for having me, Lisa.
Connie and I met when we both became certified management consultants for MindBody. And, which, as many of you know, comes from the fitness and beauty space and has morphed into wellness. So Connie and I met there and got along, and I thought, she's a very sharp person. I've seen her do a few presentations and she really knows her stuff. So I thought this would be a great topic to introduce. But I was really fascinated also to ask Connie about her journey into the space, as I often am with guests on StarrCast, because Connie used to fly jet planes, and here she is at her desk. So tell us a little bit about your career path, Connie. How did you come to be here now?
Yeah, it is definitely a little different background, I guess. So I went to the Air Force Academy for college. I was a swimmer there. I basically went there to swim and then ended up in Air Force pilot training and flew KC-10s active duty.
Not everybody gets to go to Air Force pilot training. Come on.
Yeah. I graduated pilot training in 2001, which meant that I was just straight into, all the conflicts that we had overseas, and did a bunch of deployments in those first years. I flew a tanker aircraft. Later ended up joining the Air National Guard. So I was part-time, which led me kind of into the entrepreneurial journey because I had a little more time on my hands and had little kids at home and kind of needed a creative outlet in addition to it. So I started with an Etsy shop, actually. And then handmade goods, started designing my own websites, and then decided I really liked the website part more.
Interesting. So what were you making to sell on Etsy?
Yeah, I was doing leather purses and handbags.
Oh, wow.
So sewing things. So that was fun for a while.
Interesting. So I'm so amazed about the pilot part. I mean, you were a woman among few, I'm assuming, that were Air Force pilots.
Yeah, it's about 10% of females in the pilot population.
Do you miss flying?
I do on nice days, nice sunny days. I don't miss all the paperwork that goes along with it, but it was a great career, a great sense of being on a team with people, especially the aircraft that I flew. There was a team of people on there. We had a crew of 4 at least, and traveling the world, accomplishing a mission with a group of people. There's a lot of fulfillment in that, and that's part of it. It came out of like my fitness background as well too, and I feel like people get that in this industry, the fitness and wellness industry. Like, you are working with a team to deliver something and that you can be proud of. And so it was great for that. I really, got to travel, got to see things, got to work with some incredible people.
And what was your fitness background routine? Like, what have you done that made you familiar with that world as well?
So I was a swimmer growing up, swimmer through college. That was my main competitive sport. And then since then, as an adult, I'm definitely in the population where I'm looking to add whatever different fitness routines, wellness, beauty routines to my, to what I do. So I've just jumped around a bunch with that, since I really don't swim much anymore. No. But did through college quite a bit.
Yeah, I think it's hard to find time to get in the pool when you have kids, especially, and you have hassle of kids, right?
Yeah, so, I've got 4.
4 kids. That takes up a lot of time. So that's so interesting that you made a website to sell your things on Etsy, and you decided you liked making the website better than making the things on Etsy. How long did it take you to realize that?
You know what? I had a pretty successful Etsy shop for about 5 years, probably. And then I kind of creatively just got to like the point where I kind of made everything I want to make. And it was just a natural moving on. And I would say like pixels are cheaper than leather and fabric. Mm-hmm. So you can get a little more creative and try new things and then just delete it if it doesn't work. So it worked, it was a nice, pretty easy transition. And then about that same time, I left the Air National Guard. So I wasn't flying anymore and was kind of looking to replace that income, my part-time income there. So I decided to go more into, helping small business owners with their websites. And took some training, and rest is history.
Wow. So you basically taught yourself how to do this.
Yep, pretty much. There's all kinds of online courses and stuff if you really start digging into it. So over years of, just, self-taught, but education, lots of people to learn from on the internet.
Hard to know when it's not your field, like what do you need to know? Because you're right, there are so many courses about anything, and when you look at them you think, oh, I need to know all these things and all these things, but you probably don't need to know all of it. You need to know some of it. Certainly you need to know the logistics of working with the software, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's just basic, as a small business owner, like just basic learning about graphic design. If you're going to be designing your own website or your social media graphics or flyers and all of that kind of stuff, either hire someone who has that, design eye, or who has been trained in, learning how to make things look good. I think that's really important for this market for sure. In the beauty world, right? Like the aesthetics matter. And so I think as any small business owner, spending a little bit of time learning, how to make things look good is a valuable starting point. And that's how I started with graphic design. And then that moved into web design. And then that moved into other more technical marketing things.
Well, you make a great point, Connie, because not only do you have to know the basics of the software and how to put everything up, but it does have to look good. It has to be appealing, catch people's eye, be consistent with your brand. I mean, what are the latest statistics on how long we have when a consumer lands on our web page? Say, I know there's a number that we have to catch their attention.
Yeah, I mean, it's at least under 10 seconds, somewhere on there. I mean, and that's the first impressions are made, right? And you know that you visit a website and your first impressions are made right away. You might not leave, but you're beginning to go down a path of thinking whether this business is credible and whether you want to trust them or not. So it's quick. It's within a few seconds.
Wow. Yeah. So you have to really put a lot of thought into that. What's the root of someone who wants to start a web page? Let's say it's a new business, obviously at this point, or you would have one, and you want to start your website. You have to have your branding in place, I assume. I mean, how do you advise people to proceed?
Yeah, there's really three elements that go into a website. So if you just start building a website and you don't have these three elements, handy, you're going to struggle to put that web page together. One is branding. So that's logo, colors, fonts. What is the cohesive look of the design going to be? Two is photos. And I can't overemphasize the importance of photos, especially in this industry. Having a good photo shoot of your real space and your real services and your real clients is really important to the trust factor. And then the copywriting is the third thing. And so that's the messaging. That's what the headlines are going to be. That's the words on the page. And giving some thought and some intention to that is going to make your website, make your brand stand out and make your website connect. So really the success of a website design hinges on those three things.
So I remember when websites, first came on the horizon, right? Of like, oh, you have to have a website, and how do we do this? And this was obviously many years ago, and we were paying people $10,000, $15,000 to design websites. I think it's a little bit different now, and there are more platforms, and there's also a component of it that makes you feel like, oh, I could do that myself. The commercials make you feel that. And maybe you can, but you're probably not that good at it. So how long does it take typically these days from the idea to having a working website?
Yeah, it really depends if you are doing it yourself, if you're hiring someone. And yes, absolutely, platforms are a lot easier. You don't need to code anymore to be able to, create a website, which back in the day you did. You had to build it from scratch with code. And so of course people don't have those skills. There are a lot of platforms these days that you can put it together pretty quickly. It's how good it is. It's not really the speed thing anymore. It's more, if the intention is there with the branding and with the SEO and all of those things. And if you don't know what you don't know, it's hard to put that together. So if yes, you just need a website live on the internet, you could sit down for a day and get something out there. But it may not be really helping your business the way you want it to. So it could be a big range of time and right. Spent. For me, my services are 1 week to 4 weeks, depending on the size of the website, to get it up, but this is my full-time job, and I have a system and I do it. So it just really depends on who you're working with or if you're doing it yourself.
Are there platforms that you like to work in? I mean, there's so many options now.
Yeah, I work exclusively in Squarespace. I have found it to be the happy medium between design flexibility and powerful capabilities and easy to manage. You don't have to, not a big long list of maintenance things you have to do every month to keep it up. They have customer support. So I've just found for small business owners, it's a good in between. It's a very manageable, but also very capable. So Squarespace is my favorite. There's definitely other good platforms out there. It depends a little bit if you've got an internal team that can keep it updated for you, or if you want it to be kind of self, managing, where you want to go on that spectrum.
So if you decide to do it on your own and then you don't like how it looks, what are your options for coming to someone like yourself who's a professional and saying, please fix it up? I mean, what do you have to start over?
Yeah, that is one of the reasons why I recommend people start with Squarespace, even if they are DIYing it, because Squarespace has a base platform where if you bring me your DIY Squarespace site and you're like, I like, 80% of it, can you help me bring it across the finish line with these extra 20% of customizations? I don't have any problem jumping into a Squarespace account because I know how it's built. That's not the case with like WordPress sites, where if you put together a WordPress site, most designers will not jump into a WordPress site that they didn't build from the ground up, because it's kind of, you're stacking all these foundations together. Whereas Squarespace has a base foundation, so it's easier to hire someone to help you take it the rest of the way. So yeah, I have a specific service. I help clients with that, prospects with that all the time, where they get the site where, maybe they do have a design background and they're like, I like how it looks, but I don't have the SEO and I don't have it integrated with my scheduling software. So can we get it to that next functionality level? And yeah, so that comes down to another reason why I like Squarespace, because you can take it anywhere, and a lot of designers, you have a lot of options for people to help you with it.
It's good to hear that. So, I mean, you specialize in boutique fitness, wellness businesses. How did that come to be your play space, so to speak?
Yeah, really, because I liked those businesses. So when I first started, I was designing websites for everyone. And I really looked back at one of those first years at all the clients I had, and a salon spa and a yoga studio were my two favorite projects of the year. And I think looking back, it was because those were places I would be a client at. And I really like the, submission of those types of businesses and how down to earth the business owners tend to be. They know their in-person services and their relationships with in-person are really important. And just, working with people who believe that, really, I felt inspired on those two projects. So I really very intentionally was like, okay, this is what I do. This is the niche that I serve. And it was fitness, wellness, beauty businesses, which led me to Mind Body, which then, everything grew from there. But yeah, it was pretty much, I wanted to work with businesses that I would be a client of. And, because I get excited to work with businesses like that.
Well, that seems like it was a great strategy to be like really versed in this one vertical and to be really good at it. And it leads to my next question, which is that all of these businesses rely on scheduling software, right? They're not stores that you walk into when you go down the street, and they all work on appointments, either for classes or for treatments. So you need to build websites that integrate with scheduling software. Could you speak a little bit to that process?
Yeah, that is one of the biggest goals, and it's constantly an evolving thing with all the softwares and the different softwares that are rising. But your website in general really needs to do three things for your business. It needs to help you get found. It needs to build trust with the reader. And then the last thing, it needs to connect with the reader. Typically for spas and salons, that's booking, or at least calling to book, something like that, right? So that third step is something that we talk a lot about on website projects, is how, given the scheduling software that you're using, and I always, tell people there's pros and cons to every scheduling software, and how the internal ops, the day-to-day ops of your business run. So whatever scheduling software you think is best, we'll figure out the best way to put it on your website. But there's no, black and white one way to do it. It really depends on, what that first step the business wants their readers, their prospects to do, and then what capabilities of the tool are. and how we can integrate it on the website. We try to integrate it so they don't have to go off their website. That's my first choice. And make it the fewest amount of clicks from any point on the website. If they decide, okay, I'm ready, how can they get into giving you money as the business owner or booking that appointment in the fewest amount of clicks? I mean, that's what it comes down to. And it's constantly kind of a, well, let's try this. Let's try this. Is this a new feature? And will this work better?
So the call to action, in other words, to have something happen, which is that they pick up the phone and call, or they click to book. Yep. I mean, when you think about web design, what things lead to that? What constitutes an effective call to action on the website?
Yeah, the biggest thing is that you as the business owner are sick and tired of seeing that call to action. You're going to think, oh, I'm just repeating myself over and over, but a prospect is not going to see it that way. They're poking around, reading different things. And when they're ready, they need to feel trust that clicking that button is the most accurate thing to do. So consistent call to actions and throughout the site. So they know that door is open whenever they're ready to take it. I also really like, an easiest way to do that is to have it up in the top navigation, usually in the far right. That's a button form. So it's on every page, it's consistent, and it's like their home base. They always know where to go once they make the decision to book.
Do you make those buttons like red or, is there a best practice about how to call attention to that design feature?
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about button colors, right? I personally like to add some sort of animation or something to stick it out. So if you hover over it, it gets a little bit bigger, or the color changes, or something to be kind of engaging. There's no magic color, but you do want it to be probably whatever your brand accent color is. So that goes back to one of those things that I said makes a good website. Most brand palettes will have kind of two primary colors that are complementary, and then a third accent color. Typically that accent color is for that call to action.
All right. Good to know. You made a good point, Connie, about the pictures earlier too, because there was years when you would go on a spa website and they would all have that picture of the water drop or a lady with the towel. Like they all had the same picture. Yes. We didn't have, Shutterstock back in the day and options. So let's talk a little bit about using a Shutterstock or a, photography source versus shooting your own. What are some of the pros and cons of that?
Yeah, it comes down to trusting your business. And, as someone who books facials and massages, if I'm looking for a new place, even more than the words on the website, I'm going to picture myself in the pictures there. Like, is that someplace I want to go for a relaxing day, for this treatment? So it really comes down to trust. So absolutely invest in the photo shoot. Get some nice photos of your facility, assuming that you have a nice facility to show off, because that's the doubt that readers have, is if you're just using stock photos, the question is, what are they hiding, right? Is there a space not nice enough to take a picture of? So even if it is a gorgeous space, you're introducing that element of doubt into that trust cycle that we're trying to get into with the prospect. So absolutely invest in the photo shoot. It doesn't need to be a big one, but you need, maybe 10 photos of your space showing. I would recommend also get one photo of each service, because you're going to have a page for each service. You need to show what that service is, because I might not know, what waxing is like if I've never done that. I need to see kind of, what that looks like. And that's where we get into the use of stock photos. There are some intimate services where you probably aren't going to show it, but you could show, the countertop with, some of the equipment that you use, some of the products that you use. Or there are some uses where then at this point, some stock photos where we're just showing more of a close-up skin shot or something might be useful. But that, I would say, only in tandem with having some real photos of your real space and your smiling front desk, and just so people can trust you, and they can know that you're different from all those other spa. Because you're right, it is still the case where a lot of spa sites you go to, they're all using really similar pictures, and people can tell the difference between stock and a real place.
I think now they certainly can. Now we're all starting to ask if it's AI or not, but that's another story.
That's true.
Do you think it's smart to have sort of the video tour on, where somebody walks through and takes a video?
Yeah, I love the use of video, particularly as backgrounds. So once you land right on the site, maybe you have some text on the screen, but behind that is showing, maybe just a 20-30 second clip of your space, a walkthrough, smiling front desk, all of that. I think it's really welcoming. And it just is a great way to show your brand without saying what your brand is. You can show it. And that goes for, diversity and all of those things too. If you show that we are for everybody instead of saying it, there's just so much powerful things that can come from a good photo shoot or a good video shoot. So yeah, I really do love the walkthrough. Either, a smaller video that you play and someone's walking you through the space, or even just a 20-30 second clip of some of the rooms, the spaces, that's a background video. Both of those are really effective.
When you say background video, you mean like when I go to the homepage, it's already there, it's moving?
Yep, there's no sound on it. It's moving, looping behind. It would typically take the place of like a banner image if you have text over the top of an image, but you can have just a moving video clip that loops. Again, no sound, but it just invites you in and shows you the ambiance of the space.
And how about the people? I mean, there's been different schools of thought over the years on whether you show a treatment with a person getting it or just the room. And then the pros and cons of showing people who maybe your client doesn't identify with, male, female, age, race, whatever. I mean, what are your thoughts on what should be done these days?
Yeah, that's a real tricky one. And kind of going along with that is the before and afters. Depending on what type of treatments that you have, they're really popular and people want to see that type of stuff. But I know you get into sensitive things there, and not everyone wants to put real photos of their real clients on there. I would say people in photos is valuable, particularly people showing emotions, smiles, that type of things. It really does connect with the reader, like, an empty space photo just will never do. Mm-hmm. That said, I think if you use your team, your staff, showing them kind of as the center point, and maybe there is a patient there, maybe there's a close-up, but you can't really see a whole lot of the patient. Mm-hmm. I think that's a good medium ground for that, is to show some of your staff in those photos. But yeah, depending on the treatment, the person receiving the treatment probably isn't the focal point of the room, and room space is better than nothing either. Right. So
I do like the approach of seeing sort of maybe a body part or the back of a head or something where it's not like, oh, I know that guy, but you can see it's a person, but you don't have to see too much. That seems like to be a happy medium between an empty room and putting a person in there who turns off the viewer, who says, oh, wait, that's not me.
Yeah. Yeah. And an easy way, like if you look at the stock photos that you're thinking about using, most of the stock photos are like that too, or a lot of them are. So you can get ideas from stock photos and then stage your own photo shoot to kind of replicate those macro shots that are showing, just part of the body.
Right. So is there any best practice, Connie, on how big a website should be today? Like how many pages, how complicated, what's being done?
Yeah, the answer to that is it depends on how many services you have. It's really important for SEO, for a spot, that they have a service page for each one of their services or service categories. So I would say
not all on one page.
Correct. I mean, and I see that a lot, that they're like services and here's our service list. That doesn't allow Google to rank you very high when someone's searching, say, facial treatment or skin treatments, Lincoln, Nebraska. Google shows pages. They don't show entire websites, right? They link to a specific page. So if you have a page that is all about facial skin treatments in Lincoln, Nebraska, and you've got FAQs, you've got a description of the services, you've got photos. Now Google sees that as a really content-rich page that if someone's searching facial near me and they happen to live in Lincoln, Nebraska, that page is going to be quality content in Google's eyes. So they're going to show you above somebody who has a massive services page that just lists those services out. So when I say one page for each service, I mean, maybe one page for each service category. Yeah. So if you have a waxing page, a massage page, a facials page. So if you have a pretty simple, service menu, your site's maybe going to be 10 to 15 pages. If you have a team page, an about page, and contact page, and they start to add up, but you don't need a huge site. The bigger sites that I have that I've worked with are in the med spa space or wellness businesses. You all know who you are, who have, a giant services menu. And there's a lot of questions and information that needs to be shared about like the technology and stuff for those type of businesses. So if you have a traditional spa, maybe 3 service modality categories, your site doesn't need to be huge.
What about for fitness? How do you chunk it up for fitness?
Yeah, it kind of comes down to if they have yoga and Pilates, there's a page for yoga and there's a page for Pilates. But typically the fitness studios, they all are in like the under 10 page website package. Also depends maybe if they have retreats and workshops and those types of things. Every one of those services needs its own page. And it's not necessarily just for Google, but it's just for if someone comes in wanting a specific thing, you don't want them to have to sift through a long page that has it all listed on there. You want to be able to send the link to say, here's everything you need to know about our upcoming retreat. So, fitness studios are kind of usually in the 10 to 20 page, depending on how big they are and how many things they offer.
Well, let's speak to SEO, as you mentioned, search engine optimization. I can remember again back in the day when we had to think about all the different search engines to optimize for. And now we don't. We just think about Google.
There's one.
There's one. So that makes it easier. And yet I know they change the algorithm with some frequency. So, what are some best practices in SEO that you could share with listeners?
Yeah, it really comes down to, and you're right, it's always changing and there's lots of talk, but if you just keep in mind that you are creating content primarily for the person that's going to be reading it, and then secondary for Google, you'll be fine. And with all this AI stuff that's coming out, Google is continuing to make, changes to their algorithm to try to sift out that kind of lightweight material that's coming from ChatGPT and all the AI stuff. So you don't have to keep up with all that. You just have to keep in mind, like, if I write well so that people, will understand my services and, feel encouraged to contact me, then you're going to be just fine with that. But it really comes down to, backing it out, reverse engineering it, backing it out to how are people finding businesses like me on Google? What are they typing into? Put yourself in the shoes of their prospects. Okay. You're probably going to put massage near me or massage Omaha, Nebraska, or a smaller neighborhood, Southwest Sacramento, Fair Oaks. There's certain words that people use for your location, and there's certain words that people use for your services. And it's the combo of those two things that you need to make sure is in the text of your website so that Google, you can connect those dots for Google. So a common mistake I see is the page title of the site, the headline of the site. There's no mention of their location. There's no mention of any of their services.
Totally right. I see that all the time. As a journalist, I'll be looking for a spa that does a blueberry facial, let's say, and I find them and I can't figure out where they are.
No idea, right? If you have to go to your contact page to figure out where this local business is, that's way too much work for most people. And you're hiding that information from Google as well. So
how do you weave that into your page?
Yeah, the top place would be your page title. And so depending on what platform you are, Squarespace, it's pretty easy. You go into the settings of the page. There's a spot for page title under SEO. That's what shows up in the tab at the top of your browser. If you hover over the tab, that'll be the page title. That's the number one place. Put the location and the service on that page. So your homepage, that page title may be, spa, whatever your location is. Whereas those service pages, well, actually your homepage would probably be spa featuring facials, massage. So you're putting some of those in there, and then the location. Each one of those service pages is going to be optimized for that one term. So the page title is the one place. You need to make sure those two things, service and location, are in that. Also in the headlines of the page would be the next place I would look. So if you've got a big headline at the top, great if you can fit it in there. But if you want that one to be more of a catchy, engaging headline, a subheading under that is perfectly fine too. That you get your location and you have the service in there. And it's a balance for sure. We've all been to websites that you're like, well, this clearly was optimized for SEO and nothing else, right? So especially for spas where you want to appear as a high-end business, and you don't want to look like you're shoving those words in. So it's a balance of how you can incorporate them in without just like clearly that's the only thing you care about is those keywords.
We're still using meta tags, like things that aren't really visible, but
Yep. And for those meta tags, and that's the little bit of text that shows for people listening on the Google search results page underneath the page title, the little kind of preview text that shows. That is a spot that Google doesn't care if the keywords are in there. So that is a place where you actually want to make it clickable. You want to make people really feel like, oh, I want to click on that. So that's kind of where that balance comes in. Keywords in the page title, meta descriptions written for an actual human, so that they want to click on your link. So really important still.
So how often should somebody be looking at their Google Analytics and making adjustments based on that?
Google Analytics would be more if you're looking at where your traffic is coming from. Google Search Console will tell you what people are typing in to find yours. So it's a little combination of looking at both. I do that personally for my business quarterly to see what search terms I'm getting found for, which ones I want to get found for more, and kind of balancing that out, maybe optimizing a page more or less. So I think quarterly is good to check in, see where your traffic's coming from, see what search terms you're getting found for and which ones you're not, and then reevaluate.
So do you think it's important that businesses have a website that they can update on their own, or is it more efficient to have someone like yourself do it?
I think it is critical for a small business owner to be able to make updates themselves to their own website. And you can ask any business owner who went through the pandemic, how quickly changes needed to be made sometimes, and even just simple changes. So I think there's a difference between designing a website, redesigning a website. I think that's where you hire someone, but making day-to-day updates. And if you work with someone who makes that easy for you, sets up the site where you can, make small updates to text, to images,
change a price.
Right. Change a price, those types of things. I don't think any small business, it's just not viable that you should have to wait on someone else to change a price. You need to change a price. So I think that's one of the conversation points that small owners need to have when they're interviewing web designers and talking to them is, who holds the keys to this website? Like, am I going to have to pay every time? And, or can I do basic things myself? I think it's critical.
Speaking to SEO, does the updating of the site play into that? I mean, I've heard that the more you're updated, the higher you'll rank. Is that true?
That's not that used to be the case more than it is now. Google really just cares about the quality of the content now. But if you are, constantly like adding new services, changing services, you may want to have someone, I think everyone needs a website person that they can go to if something breaks, if they need to troubleshoot, if they're adding something big, if they're changing something big. But day to day, you should be able to do some of those things yourself. I don't think changing things just to change things on your website is really a thing anymore when it comes to SEO.
Okay.
As long as you're not, if you're not being intentional about, we're actually trying to rank higher for this, so we're going to make some changes.
Well, it certainly is important to know what people are typing in to find you, as you said, and to make sure you come up on page one, right? I mean, that's the goal. I think if you're coming up on page 7 out of 100, it's still, you're not going to be seen, are you?
Correct. Yep. You get nothing for being on page 2, even. Like, I think it's something, I don't know the stats, but it's like 90% of the search, clicks go to the top 3 results. So really, even if you're at the bottom of page 1, probably not helping your business bottom line.
Amazing. It's like a whole science that we never used to have to think about, but you really do now.
Yeah. And I would say on the SEO topic, that Google business profile, which is not directly related to your website, but that's where you show up on the map. It's the profile that just is on Google. That is the most important thing for your local SEO.
Really?
Log in, give it some love, make sure you have your services listed, make sure, send reviews there and everything. Because if you think about it, if you search for something local to you, that map's always at the top. So you have to scroll past that map listing to even find the website. So yes, website is important because most people will even see you on the map and then click to your website to learn more if they want to trust you. But that Google business profile is the number one thing that you need to look at for local SEO.
So let's talk broader digital, Connie. I mean, of course you want to have a website, or do you? Right now, sometimes I run across businesses now that don't seem to have a website. They have a Facebook business page, but they don't have a website. What are your thoughts? Obviously, you're a web designer, but what are your thoughts on what's the strategy here?
Yeah, I think if you are banking on a certain social media platform to be your website, you really are painting yourself in a corner about the demographics of the people who are going to find you. One of the things that I do for my retainer clients is run Facebook ads. And I can tell you it's very clear demographics of, the ages and the genders of people who are on Instagram versus Facebook. So that's one, you just are hiding yourself from a big population that doesn't use that social media platform. And that's an ever changing thing too, which social media platforms, come and go. So it's definitely good I think the point of social media would be to drive people to your website because you can show more of what you do. You can, get found different ways. You can invite them in, that connection piece. There's just so much more you can do on a website. So yeah, absolutely. I think you need a website. One, for the visibility piece of it, and two, for the storytelling or the connection piece of it as well. I think
right. A Facebook post is one thing, right? I mean, you can't really tell the whole story that way.
Yeah, and I think people, and today I would be mistrustful of a business who didn't have a website. If all I could find was on social media, there's not a lot of trust built up there.
No, I feel the same. Sometimes I'm like, really? You don't have a website? I mean, how hard is that? But I guess if you have a very specific niche of clients and you reach them on Facebook and you don't need any more, maybe that's a strategy. I mean, I know that owners think, oh, well, it's shareable, right? Social media, people will share and grow it. But I'm not sure how true that is these days.
Not anymore. It used to be much more of a thing, but organic reach on social media is so low now. I mean, even people who follow your page aren't seeing all your posts. So, I mean, yeah, I just, yeah.
Because there's so many posts now. I mean, why did that happen?
Because Facebook wanted to grow their ads platform. That's how they make money. And so if they're allowing small business owners to, this probably happened 8-10 years ago. If they're showing, for free, small businesses that, can show their stuff to people for free, then there's no incentive for businesses to use their ad platform and pay money to use that ad space. So that was kind of the change there. I think in the past, people were able to run, with just a Facebook page, but it's not really the case anymore. You're just much more in a corner of the internet where people can't find you. So, you asked about strategies, like if you are in a case where you don't need more clients, and there are businesses that do pretty well just off of referrals and they don't need more clients, like as long as you feel pretty confident in that you're never going to need more clients, then you might get away with that.
You tell in your search console, say, if clients are coming to you from social streams or from ads, like what are you seeing in terms of driving traffic to the website?
Yeah. You can see, and that'd be Google Analytics. You can absolutely see the sources that people are coming to your website from. I could see from the clients that I work with, the more established your business is. If your business has been around for 10 years, you have a good chunk, probably half of your website traffic comes from organic Google searches. So not ads, just I'm looking for you. You've got a good presence on that Google page.
They know your name and like your town, and they just look for you.
Yeah. Or they are just searching for, massage near me, and you do so well because Google rewards businesses who have been around for a long time too. So because they're trustworthy and they're credible. So you just show up naturally. You don't have to pay ads or anything. So you are afforded that luxury as a business who's established. You'll get, half of your website traffic that way. Newer businesses aren't going to show up real well. It depends on how good their SEO is and what the competition is. But Newer businesses, when you look at their traffic sources, they've got to do a lot more hustle on social media or paid ads, ways to get people to their website because they're just not going to show up naturally right away. So, but I would say in successful businesses that have been around for a while, at least half of their traffic comes from Google without them paying for anything. So it's a long game for sure, but it's a good investment if you plan to be around.
Well, investment is a good word to lead to our next topic. I'd like to talk about the finances of all of this. I mean, do you have any recommendations for what should be spent in a digital strategy or overall marketing, or what percentage of your marketing is digital, et cetera? How are you thinking these days?
Yeah, it really depends. It goes back to, where are you at in the life cycle of your business? How much traffic do you need? Where are your people? I think that you invest first in your website, because all the paid ads and the digital, everything, every work you do, whether it's organic social media or paid ads, it's all going to lead back to your website. So if your website isn't converting, that's step one. Like, don't bother spending all that money.
Leads that you can't convert, right?
Right, exactly. So you could spend anywhere, from website, from DIY to, getting someone to help you with it. My base package is $47.50. So just to kind of put that in context.
Great.
I have less and bigger ones as well, but just to kind of give you a baseline for that. So I would say first, start with your website. Second, get your organic SEO in place. So that's your Google business profile. That's the website optimizations. If you don't have that, if you have a beautiful website, great. Make sure you have those just baseline, basic SEO type stuff, because it's free and it'll help you in the long run. It's not something like a paid ad that's just going to go and be gone. So I would do that next. And then it gets into, strategies on, okay, do you want to run digital ads, or do you want to work on more guerrilla marketing tactics for referrals, encouraging referrals, getting the word out within your community? And you can go either way there, right? One is going to take more of your staff working it and more time. Digital ads is just going to take more money. So you can kind of branch off, I think, from there once you have those two things in place. Budget wise, I think probably, most people are spending like 10% of their gross revenue on some sort of marketing activity. And you can define that either way, whether we're, spending the staff hours to run this promotion or whether we're doing digital ads. So.
Okay. So 10% of gross receipts is a good starting point. Maybe a little lower in spa because there's higher labor costs, in a spa business than a fitness business. Yeah, but that's a good equation to think about. So if you're taking on a new client right now, what's an overall digital strategy involved? What else are we not talking about yet that we should be?
I think website or brand positioning is something that doesn't get talked about a whole lot. And it's really the foundation for all of this marketing stuff. For your website, for sure, your social media, knowing how you're different, how you're viewed in your local market in context, how you're different, and how you're going to amplify that out is critical to the success of all those other things, all those other tactics that you're going to do. So I feel like a lot of, people, with small businesses, they think the same way as their competition, and they're afraid to go outside of, what makes us different, why we're better. And they're afraid to talk that up. They want to kind of blend in. But if you can hone in on who your people are, what their pain points are, why they're coming to, what they want to get out of your services, then I think doing all of those other things is just going to be so much more beneficial for your business. So figuring out the competition, the competitive landscape, and figuring out where your business is positioned is pretty critical to all these marketing efforts.
That's a good point you make. I mean, on SEO, back to that, should I be using words that talk about what I do, massage, facial, fitness classes, or should we be using words that talk about the results of what we'll do, like my, hydrated skin or relaxed muscles? Which approach works better?
Yeah, both is the answer. So that's where that kind of balancing act comes. I approach it. I would write the text on your website, say your homepage. I would write the headline and write the paragraph. I would write all that with the client in mind. So glowing skin, less stress, all those things, those benefits. Write that, and then go back in and, like I said, can you add a subheading that has those keywords for Google in it? Can you mix in maybe another keyword here or there without losing the feeling of what you wrote? So I would say I always write for the person first. And then that's why, SEO is optimization. So it's not write everything from the beginning for Google. It's optimize your current content for Google. So it's sprinkling in a little things to not lose the whole point of it. One of the tips that I give people, and one of the things that I do with my own clients when we're working on that messaging, is I go back and look through their reviews, Google reviews, or wherever you have good reviews from clients, and look at the words that they're using to describe what they liked about your studio. I walked in and left feeling refreshed, and this is my, oasis in the city. Those type of words and phrases that really connect with prospects. Your own clients are using them. They're in your reviews. So that's a great place to kind of pick out little pieces that you can use in your headlines that make other people feel like, yes, that's exactly what I'm looking for. So you don't have to invent it all from scratch, but that's how I would approach it.
And as many of you know, from the fitness and what's next on the digital horizon? I mean, we've been looking at Facebook and Instagram for some time now. Instagram continues to be a strong driver, I think, for many of these businesses. TikTok comes along. Pinterest was here. And what's next? Where do we need to be playing right now? Journey into the space, as I often am with guests on StarrCast,
it's AI. For sure. And it's less about those content platforms like social media, and it's more about really personalized outreach that as a small business owner, you can leverage AI to use. So things like texting and emails. I think the whole industry, the whole wellness, fitness, beauty industry is going to have a kind of go full circle back to really personalized communications and outreach. I think that's what's going to differentiate businesses. We've swung, all of our marketing has swung more towards the automated side. And I think AI is going to make it easier for small businesses and more cost,
in those first years. I flew a tanker
aircraft for small businesses. Later, to go back to having really personalized communications with the help of AI. So,
which led me kind of into the entrepreneurial journey.
I think we see ourselves with more one-to-one communications compared to just putting content out, putting newsletters out.
I started with an Etsy shop.
Where it all goes is going to be really interesting, a little scary.
Goods,
but I think the AI kind of
decided I really like the website part.
The tide is coming, and it'll be interesting to see how that really plays out.
What were you making to sell on Etsy? For sure. I went to the Consumer Electronics Show this year, as I have done for the last few years, and it was just, that's all it was. I'm so amazed about the pilot, every lecture, every device. I'm assuming it was all about what it could do in AI. And I think, well, that's great, but I don't know what to do with that as a business operator. I mean, how should I be preparing for this? I'm used to getting a personalized email. That's nothing new. What more can we be doing to be prepared to leverage this?
Yeah, I mean, it was a great,
I think it's still to play out because I think some people will use it horribly and it'll backfire on them too. I don't think it's something you need to jump in and be like, yes, everything AI, it's trendy. I think remember at the core that you are still a person business, and in-person relationships are important.
That's part of it.
And one of the things that I've seen that you're familiar with FitGrid, that platform. So I think they're kind of moving, and they focus on boutique fitness, but
deliver something, and that
they plug in with schedulers in this industry like MindBody.
It was great for that. I really,
the approach that they are taking is AI generated personal messages, and it's different from like,
what have you done that,
hey Lisa, thanks for coming in for your first appointment. Would you like to set
so I was a swimmer
that's personalized to an extent because we can tell you had your first appointment, it was a facial, right?
Since then, as an adult,
but now we're getting
definitely in the population
like a tool like FitGrid is prompting more data into those emails, so it's even more personal. Lisa, thanks for coming in for your first appointment with Jill. She mentioned that you might want to try a massage next. So it's going a little deeper into the personalization. And what I like what FitGrid is doing is they're queuing up those messages for you, but there's
hassle
still
of
human
kids,
oversight
right?
into that.
Yeah.
So
You as the business
Poor
owner,
kids.
look at the
That can
message
take
and
a lot
say,
of
that doesn't
time.
quite sound like
So
us.
that's
I'm not going to
so
include that
interesting
part
that
before you send it.
you made a
So I think
website to
that's
sell your things on Etsy, and you
the first
decided
use
you
case
liked
that's
making the
going to
website better
probably
than
start
making
making
the
its way
things on
into a lot
Etsy.
of different
How
tools.
long did it
I think
take you to
FitGrid's one of the
realize
first
that?
ones to do it well,
You know what? I had a pretty
to
successful
where
Etsy
you're
shop
using
for
AI
about
to give
5
prompts that you
years
still as a human
probably.
can
And then
decide
I
whether
kind
to
of
use or
creatively
not.
just
So
got to
I
like
guess
the
to
point
answer your
where
question about like, what do I
yeah,
do
I've kind
with
of
all
made
this?
everything I want to make.
Look to the tools you're already
And
using
it was just a
and
natural
look and see
moving on. And I would
what
say
the
like
opportunities
pixels are
there
cheaper
are.
than
If
leather
it doesn't
and
feel
fabric.
right, don't do
So
it.
you
It's
can
going to
get
keep
a little more
evolving
creative and
and
try
getting
new
different.
things and then
So
just delete
you don't
it
have
if
to
it
do it
doesn't
just
work.
because it's AI,
So
but
it worked.
I think we're going to
You know,
start to
it was
see
it
that
was a
show
nice,
up in more and more
pretty
of the
easy
tools
transition.
that
And then
business
about
owners
that
use
same
in
time,
their
I
everyday.
left the Air National
I
Guard,
think
so I
your
wasn't
advice
flying
is good about
anymore,
not feeling like
and
you have to
was kind of
jump
looking to
in. I
replace that
mean,
income, my part-time income
you want to
there.
be
So
aware,
I decided
but
to go more
you don't want
into
to jump in until
helping
you
small
know
business
how it's
owners with their
being
websites,
used.
and
And it's just
took some
also
training,
new
and
all the
the rest is
time. This
history.
is what's hard for
Wow. So you
people who
basically
didn't
taught
grow up in the
yourself how to
tech
do
age. It's
this.
like every week there's something
Yep,
new
pretty
and you
much.
feel like I
There's
can't work the
all
remote on my
kinds of
TV
online
anymore. You know,
courses
it's all
and stuff if you really start
complicated,
digging into it. So
and
over
yet we have to
years
keep
of,
up to
you
keep
know,
our businesses going.
self-taught,
So
but
it's
education,
a
lots of people to
challenge.
learn
Mm.
from on
Yeah,
the
and I'll
internet.
share how I use it in my
It's hard
business,
to
the
know
AI.
when it's not your
I
field.
don't
Like,
use
what
it for
do you
design at
need to
all
know?
because the
Because
AI
you're
design
right.
stuff is
There are so
terrible.
many courses
So
about
don't
anything,
feel
and then
like,
you look at them and
you
you think, oh,
necessarily,
I need to know all these
get an
things and
AI
all
tool
these
to
things,
design your
but
website.
you
They're going to mean the
probably
same a
don't need
lot.
to know all of
But I
it.
do
You know,
use
you need
tools
to
like
know some of it.
ChatGPT for,
Certainly, you need to know the
brainstorming
logistics of working
ideas
with
and
software,
outlining things. I do
obviously.
not use it.
Yeah,
And I
yeah, for
caution my
sure. I mean,
clients
there's just
to
basic,
not use
you
it
know, as a
for
small business
write my
owner, like
website copy
just
because
basic
there's some
learning
legal
about
things,
graphic
risks
design
there
if you're
too.
going to
You might not
be
have the copyright to
designing your
that
own
content.
website or
You
your
don't know
social
where
media
ChatGPT
graphics
got
or
it, but
flyers and
I
all
think it's
that
really
kind of
good for
stuff.
like,
You know, either hire someone who has
write
that,
me
you
10
know,
social
design
media
eye
posts
or
about
who
this
has been
promotion. And
trained
then you
in, you
take
know,
that and then you
learning
tweak it and you
how to
make
make
it
things
what you
look
want
good. I
to.
think that's
So
really important for this
first
market
drafts, I
for
think it's
sure.
great for
In
like
the
first
beauty
drafts
world,
type
right? Like the
things. And I think
aesthetics
Well
any
industry.
small
said.
business
And
owner can start using
so
that
I think
now.
as any small
Yeah,
business
I agree.
owner,
I've been
spending a little
using
bit
it
of
as well,
time
just to kind of get
learning, you
some
know, how to
facility
make
with it
things
and play
look
with it.
good
But I
is
agree.
a
It comes
valuable
back with
starting point. And
something
that's how I
that's pretty
started with graphic
simple
design. And then that moved
on the
into web
surface,
design.
and
And
it
then that
looks
moved into
very
other
nice, but
more
it doesn't have the
technical
nuance
marketing
that it
things.
may need to have
Well,
to
you
really
make
be
a great
effective.
point, Connie,
So I
because
think you're
not
right. A
only do you
first
have to
draft
know the
approach
basics
is
of
a
the
good way to
software
start.
and
And
how to
then you
put
do need to
everything up,
tweak
but
it.
it does have to look
Yeah,
good.
and that goes
It
back to
has
what I
to
was
be
talking about your
appealing,
brand and
catch
about your
people's eye, be
positioning and how
consistent
you
with
want
your
to stand
brand.
out and be
I mean,
different and
what
how
are
you're
the
going to connect with
latest
people. And if
statistics
you're
on how long
using the
we
same
have when a
type of
consumer
output
lands
that
on
Every
our
ChatGPT
browser.
is
webpage,
giving
say?
everyone,
I
you're
know there's
not
a
going to,
number that we have to
make yourself stand out in the
enter.
market.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean,
very
it's at
informative,
least under
Connie.
10
Do you have any
seconds, somewhere
other
on there. I mean,
last
and
advice
that's
for
that first
listeners
impressions are
on a
made,
digital
right? And you know
strategy?
that you visit a website and your first impressions are made right away.
Yeah,
You
I
might
would
not
just go
leave,
back
but
to,
you're
my
beginning to
number
go
one
down
for
a
this
path of
market
thinking whether this business
specifically,
is credible and whether you
invest
want
in
to
a good
test them
photo
or not.
shoot.
So
We talked about
it's quick.
budget
It's
and
within
those
a few
types of
seconds.
things, but
Wow.
a good
Yeah,
photo
so you
shoot
have
with
to
good
really
photos you can
put a lot
use
of
on your
thought
social
into
media,
that.
you can use in
What
your Google business
what's
profile,
the
you can
root of
use on your
someone who
website.
wants to
So along
start
with
a web
what you want your brand to be known
page? Let's say
for,
it's a new business.
showing your real
Obviously, at this
business
point, or you
in
would have
great
one,
photos can
and you
amplify
want to
all of
start your
those things as
website.
well. So
You have to have your
yeah, I know
branding
I
in
talk about
place,
it a
I
lot, but
assume.
it
And
is
how do
definitely an
you
opportunity
advise
for
people to
spas
proceed?
specifically that not a lot of people
Yeah,
are taking advantage of.
I
So
mean,
invest,
Okay.
get
there's
a,
really
a local wedding
three
photographer
elements
or
that go
whatever
into
who
a
can
website. So if you
take
just
good
start
photos one
building a
day
website and
in
you
your
don't have these
space. And I
three
think that's
elements,
a great investment
handy,
for
you're going
all
to
of your
struggle to
marketing.
put that web page
I
together.
will second
One
that.
is
I
branding,
mean,
so that's logo,
there
colors,
used to be a
fonts. What
time when
is
we
the
would say,
cohesive
"Oh, my
look
sister
of the
takes great
design going to
photos.
be?
She's got the
Two
latest
is
phone." I
photos,
mean,
and I
you need to photographer who
overemphasize the
uses a
importance of
real
photos,
camera and
especially in this
lights
industry,
and knows how to set up
having
a
a good
scene
photo shoot
and
of your
set
real
the
space
stage,
and
maybe
your
a
real
set
services and your
director or
real
something,
clients
because these
is really
images you're going to
important
be
to the trust
using for
factor.
what, 3 years
And then
probably, and
the
you want them to
copywriting
be
is the
right.
third thing. And so
And you're
that's
right,
the
a lot of
messaging.
people
That's
do
what the
cut the
headlines are going to
corner.
be. That's
My
the
other
words on
last
the page.
pet peeve
And giving some
that you
thought
may
and some
laugh at
attention
is
to
when I
that
go
is
to a
going to
business
make your
website and I can't find out when
make your
they're
brand
open.
stand out and make your website connect.
Their
So
hours of
really the
operation, or
success of a
like
website
not on the
design hinges
homepage,
on
not,
those three
what's
things.
the best practice for
Oh,
that?
I
Where should
remember
they
when
be?
websites,
Yeah, go
first
spend a little
came
bit of time
on
updating your footer
on
of your
on
website. It's a
on the
great place to
horizon,
have
right?
the
Of like, oh,
hours.
you have
Make
to
sure
have a
your
website.
location
You
and your
probably
address is
do
there
this, and this
too.
was
What's
obviously many
great
years
about
ago.
using the footer of your
And we were
website
paying
is
people
it's identical and it's on every
$10,000,
page of your website. So
$15,000 to
it
design
helps,
websites.
you're
I think
not
it's a
going to
little bit
forget. No
different
one's
now,
they're going to be able
and
to
there are
see it.
more
It also helps
platforms,
Google
and
kind of tie all of that
there's also
content
a
back to you as a
component of it that
business. So
makes
your
you
footer
feel
should
like,
have
oh, I could do that
your
myself. The
address. It should have
commercials
your
make you feel that.
hours. if you have regular hours.
And maybe you
and
can,
then
but you're
maybe like
probably
a
not
quick
that
link
good
to
at it.
contact
So
you or to book. Like repeat
how
that
long
down
does
there
it
as
take
well.
typically?
But
Maybe
yeah.
even a
these
phone
days
number
from
for
the
the old
idea
fashioned
to
folks,
having
right?
a
Right.
working
However, they
website?
can contact you. Yep. It's good
Yeah, it
for,
really
you know,
depends if
credibility. And
you
it's also
are doing it
just
yourself,
good.
if you're
It's a
hiring someone. And
underlooked,
yes, absolutely.
spot of
Platforms
your
are a lot
website
easier.
too, the
You don't
footer.
need to code
Sure.
anymore
Used
to
for
be
all that
able
stuff.
to, you know, create a
Well,
website,
great
which
advice,
back
Connie
in the day
Holland.
you
Thank you
did. You
so
had
much
to
for
like
taking the
build it from
time with
scratch
us
with
today.
code.
You
And
can
so of
find
course people
Connie
don't
at
have those
Pixality
skills.
Design,
There are a lot of platforms these days that you can put it together pretty
pixalitydesign.com. She has her
quickly.
own podcast on
It's
digital marketing, so
how
you
good
should
it
give it a
is. It's
listen,
not
get
really the
some
speed
more good
thing
tips.
anymore.
Thanks again for joining us.
It's more, you know,
Absolutely. It was
if
fun. Thanks for
the
having me.
intention is there
My
with the
pleasure.
branding and